sad in the 20th century and in the 1990s we have to still go the same bullshit route that other artists have had to go to get acceptance. If it wasn't for the independence, if it wasn't for the small little cities and the few little ghetto guys trying to make music, it would have never happened. Some of these guys will never make a dime. Some of these guys will be poor and die alone. But in the process, they've been the true renegades. And the true rebels always walk alone anyway. guys will never make a dime. But in the process, they've been the true renegades. And the true rebels always walk alone anyway.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the British Boring Car Championship and rounds 13 and 14 from Brands Hatch Indy, the legendary short Brands Hatch Indy circuit. We're here for the penultimate race meeting of the season. It's getting down to crunch time now for these boys. And as we go into this final section of the season, the final quarter as such, the pressure is really mounting. My name is Chaz Draycott, and alongside me again, I'm very pleased to welcome David Addison back to the box. How are we doing, David?
We're all right, thank you, Chaz. We're a bit confused because you're taking me to the end of one championship, and this rainforest of paperwork, which I shall put to one side, is the start of a whole new one that gets underway at Donington at the weekend. So slightly the tipping point. We've got championships starting in the real world and coming towards the end in a virtual world. But one thing is for sure, and that is that no matter what the touring car category, Indy Circuit, Brands Hatch, lots of touring cars equals action. So we're in for a good night.
Yes, definitely. And of course, the short nature of this circuit as well means that the times are incredibly close. I mean, you'll see on the left-hand side, everybody, 7 thousandths of a second between Fraser Smith and his teammate Tom Jacobs at the moment in practice. And then behind them, Melchett and Rayfield are separated by 1 thousandth. And then Rob and Fox, 3 thousandths. It's just incredible all the way down this order. 15 cars here covered by 9 tenths of a second. So be sure to keep an eye on that timing tower on the left, because as qualifying gets on and the pressure mounts here, David, they're just going to get more and more frantic with these lap times, aren't they?
Indeed, and that's been one of the beauties of Brands Hatch, the Indy circuit particularly. It's 1.2 miles long. You can't really make a break. You've got to be slightly dependent on other people making mistakes to give you that opportunity to pull away. And you only need to make one tiny error and they're back with you again. So It's going to be certainly the first race particularly frantic. The second one's got the pit stop in it as well. But yes, I would be surprised if we didn't have a lot of people on the green bits and a lot of shuffling of the race order.
Yeah, for sure. I was just trying to bring up the championship standings at the moment on the overlay, but for some reason it's not actually got the updated data on it. For some reason it's still showing what there was previously. So, oh well. But this man that we look at right now, David Waldock, leads the championship, and it's the first time the championship lead has changed since the third race. So he's doing what everyone thought was impossible. He finally took his first race win at Donington Park after a long time without one, and he is only 2 points clear of this man, Dennis Melchett, known as the Lord of the Jetta or the King of the Jetta, depending on who you speak to. But to be honest, David,
it's a dubious honour, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Well, to be fair, it's similar to Matt Draycott as well. He could wrap up the mediocre Cup for Independence this evening if he leaves here 36 points clear of Steve Burke. Then he will be the champion in that category. He's currently 31, so he only needs to get 5 more points than him.
But in fairness to Matt Draycott, he's third overall, isn't he, in the championship? So David Waldock, 2 points up on Dennis Melchett. OK, they're a long way ahead of Matt Draycott, but he's positioned himself quite nicely ahead of Josh Rayfield, who was so spectacular at Donington. Spectacular being a euphemism which can cover a multitude of sins, really. Andy Fox, 5th in the championship, and he's only 4 points up on Michael Blake. So there's still quite a lot that can shuffle out of all of that in the top 6, isn't there? Yeah,
definitely. And I mean, second, I think it was 3rd to 8th was covered by 17 points. Derek Robb had a really good surge in the championship recently. He's only 2 points behind Tom Jacobs, who is now dipped down to 7th after his non-appearance at Donington. Michael Blake is then only 5 points ahead of him. Then it's 4 points to Andy Fox, and then 1 point to Josh Rayfield, and then 5 to Matt Draycott. So the whole pack in that midfield is very tasty indeed. And Steve Burke as well is someone that's had a bit of a resurgence in his championship fight in the Independents. So he's going to be hoping that Matt doesn't get away too much in this one.
Now, what's interesting as well is that Fraser Smith, who's been, since his late arrival in the championship, almost a qualifying king, is doing it again. But he doesn't race that well, does he? In terms of his pace, you think, oh, he's going to be a standout. But actually, the results haven't really come.
No, he's had a rough few rounds. I mean, there was the incident last week with Josh Rayfield and Dennis Melchett where, to be honest, actually, Fraser's race meetings have both gone downhill because of 3 wide scenarios on lap 1, race 1. So hopefully we don't see that again this evening as he takes a very agricultural line through Graham Hill Bend.
Lord.
That was lively, but that's the thing in these cars. You can, well, as he's showing there, you can chuck them about and have a bit of a laugh with them despite the lack of power and, well, everything. The lack of race car characteristics, I think, is probably the best way to put it. But, you know, they still have provided a lot of fun for it. Speaking of fun, though, I imagine that you're rather excited for the upcoming weekend with the British Touring Car Championship. I'll get the full thing out. Starting again this weekend.
It's been a long time coming, hasn't it? And yes, I think everybody is raring to go. Partly because we all want to see one another again. You know, there's a bit of a cliche, the BTCC family, but it is. Although quite how much access we're all going to have remains to be seen, and I mean that for everybody. I think the teams are being encouraged to stay in their own bubble, to use the modern parlance, and there's a limit on how many people you can have. I think it's 12 people to a team, which includes the driver, so it's going to feel very different. Sadly, as was announced yesterday, no crowd is going to be allowed at Donington after all. We're going to have to broadcast entirely from the TV compound, including Louise, because her interview, she won't be allowed on the grid. The coverage will feel rather different. I mean, the racing will still be good racing, I'm sure, but it's going to feel rather different, and it'll be a different way of working. But we all want to get back out there. The teams want to go racing because they want to earn, fundamentally. They want to honour their commitments to sponsors. Even this week, we've had more shuffles of the entry because sponsors aren't being able to commit. They're not getting what they want anymore because of the restrictions on hospitality and so forth. But fundamentally, yes, let's go racing. And it is going to be fascinating now to see how the championship pans out. You could argue that with Andrew Jordan not taking part, that takes one potential champion off the grid. My gut feeling is it's going to be Tom Ingram versus Colin Turkington for the year. But we will see.
Well,
we will see.
You heard that bet here first, everybody. But no, I agree. I mean, Tom Ingram's been doing a fantastic job in the last few years, and of course he came close just 2 or 3 years ago now. And to be fair, he's close on most occasions, but now they've got that Corolla dialed in. It's going to be very interesting to see. And I think the extra time off might have helped the guys as well, just sort of recuperate and get prepared for the season ahead. Because, I mean, I know that while winter, essentially, in motorsport is a few months long, they still do often leave it last minute, don't they, with getting everything finalised.
Yeah. What's going to be interesting as well is to see what difference the lack of people at the event makes. You've heard drivers talk about the crowd being a motivation. I don't think the drivers are going to lack motivation once they go racing. That's one of the hallmarks of the BTCC. But a team owner was suggesting that you're going to miss that hustle and bustle in the paddock, and having lots of people milling around and that sense of urgency means that you try that bit harder to work on a damaged car, for example, between races. Our team's going to miss that. Is the general feeling of the day going to be a lot more drawn out, perhaps stretching the point a little bit, but is it going to be a more relaxed pace because you haven't got that sense of urgency, that feel of energy within the paddock? I'll tell you after the weekend. I don't think we know yet, but it will feel different for sure. It really will.
Yeah, I think. There's one of the dodgy MOT cars there, Andy Fox, going very, very off. If off is now a word or an owl, I tell you what, that concrete caught him out there. That's a bit of a moment. Dennis Melchett went a bit wide through Graham Hill Bend on his lap there, by the look of it, and I think we've only got outlaps on the left-hand side at the minute, so this will be the first proper representation, as he does a 52.6. So it still counts, but that's not pole pace, I don't think. Although Jackalette 6:10.
It puts him at the top for now, doesn't it? But the last couple that I have seen of this championship, he was really good in the qualifying, but wasn't able to convert that to race results. So he has lost, as you say, that championship lead. He needs to bank some points tonight, doesn't he?
Yeah, he certainly does. And someone as well that does need a bit of a comeback here is Tom Jacobs. He's dropped down to 7th in the championship now. He's only got 2 points one way and then 5 points the other way in the championship. So he could gain places with another good race meeting. He's good at winning the race 1 on the night, because we've seen him win a couple of sprint races this season. He actually has 3 race wins. He won the very first race of the season he won the very first race of the season, sprint race, here at Brands Hatch, but using the Grand Prix circuit. And then he won at Alton Park as well, and then he won at Snetterton. But they only combined between them, as Morgan Butler goes fastest, now Fraser Smith. The times are going to tumble down. But Tom Jacobs' 3 race wins only got him 30 points though, David, whereas 1 feature race win gets you 25. So it just shows how important the feature race is and how bad my points scoring system is.
Well, it does put the onus on drivers not to throw everything at the first race, doesn't it? And they have to be sensible about it and think about a championship. It's it's knowing when to hold and when to fold, isn't it? You can be a hero in race 1, or you can bank some points in that and really go for it in race 2. But it's always, I mean, it was in period when it was the BTCC regulation. It was one of the fascinations of seeing who would come out on top in the short or the long races. Fraser Smith, though, doing what he's done for the last 2 events, and that's topping the times, and he's done it by just under a tenth of a second over Tom Jacobs. So for Nodaphone, that's looking pretty good so far, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and Nodaphone as well, actually. Last time we ripped Brands Hatch at the start of the season, that was I think Morgan Butler going off there. The Nodaphone guys, when it was Jack Werrell, of course, who was the original teammate of Tom Jacobs, Tom won the sprint race, and then Jack Werrell won the feature race. So it's definitely a good hunting ground for these guys, and they're showing the same again here, but this time Fraser Smith right up there. Dennis Melchett is currently 3rd. He's just going through clearways at the moment. Josh Rayfield, always exciting and fun to watch is Josh. He's just going round behind Dennis there. 4th place at the moment. Michael Blake is off the circuit. He's another one that's done pretty well recently, of course, getting his first actual result out of a feature race at Snetterton and getting the race win. Dennis Melchett goes fastest, though, 52.290. So they are really starting to tumble. Waldock goes 5th. Of course, those guys fighting for the championship as well. Don't forget, we will keep an eye on the points difference. Dave Waldock is currently 2 points up. And in the Independence Championship, it is the better Draycott that is leading that one from Steve Burke. So Steve has got his work cut out tonight, hasn't he?
He has, but equally he's safe in that 2nd place, whereas Chris Coughlin, who is 3rd, ain't here. So he's not under really any threat, Steve Burke, in terms of points, so he can, in theory, concentrate all his efforts on getting onto terms with Matt Draycott. And in terms of times, Draycott is 7th and Steve Burke's only 9th at the moment, and Fox has been off again.
Let's have a quick look at what happened here. I think Druids has caught a couple of these guys out, but it looked like he might have gone off at paddock. We've seen some of them when they finished a lap before. Oh, he's on the gravel there, and is he going to hit the wall? We saw Matt do this earlier. No, he's just going to drive it all the way up the hill and plonk into the wall. I think he's just making the most of the fact that he can just go back to the pits and get a new car and get back out there. Of course, you wouldn't do that in the real world. Just put it in a wall and go, we're done, boys. Be a bit of a weird
your best lap time for causing a stoppage, yeah. Dennis Melchett has pitted and gone back out. Steve Burke has now improved to go 6th ahead of Matt Draycott. So in their private battle within the Mediocre Cup, then that puts him 1 row further up the grid as well.
Yep, and it's a bit of a mix there with the Independents and the Might Just Fit cars, and then Morgan Butler in the Team Jane Fonda machine. Carl Jacquelet actually qualified on pole in the practice race on Tuesday night and was leading said practice race until Matt Draycott won that one. A couple of the guys, I think there was 7 or 8 of them in the official practice session, covered by 0.4 of a second. Oh, that was Tom Jacobs having a moment in front, and Carl gets T-boned. And to be honest, the sight of a Jetta getting absolutely mullered like that is quite an entertaining one.
It warms the heart, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. But they are robust little tanks, these. Well, little. Big tanks, these things. I'm just quite surprised, though, that Andy Fox hasn't actually gone a bit further up the order. He's been very quick recently. He's the latest race winner in the British Touring Car Championship, winning the feature at Donington. But I say that he's not further up. He's only half a second off pole, David. It's incredibly close.
Yeah, and they've got to survive Paddock and Druids on the first lap. So he might luck into gaining a whole heap of ground because you've got 2 pinch points there in quick succession. So yeah, you don't necessarily have to do all the heroics to begin with. Just keeping out of trouble would certainly help.
Yeah.
So clock ticks on down. Dennis Melchett remains the fastest,
as is proceeding so far in this championship. But can Fraser Smith do anything? Fraser's sat in the pits and he's been in there for a bit now. So wondering what the situation is there. Whether he's nipped off to get... Oh, never mind. He's not nipped off to get anything. Derek Robb's another one as well that has been very quick recently. He had some great results when it came to Donington Park recently. He finished 2nd in race 1. And 3rd in race 2. I mean, Dave Waldock won race 1 and finished 2nd in race 2. So those guys were battling in both races all race long. So Derek has launched himself into that sort of top group in the championship now.
He's overdue a win, isn't he? Because he also got a 2nd at Snetterton in the sprint race. So he's been, to coin a phrase, there or thereabouts over the last couple of rounds,
yeah.
So or a couple of events. He's probably deserving of a win.
Yeah, for sure. I think
Tom Jacobs still 3rd. Sorry, I was going to say Tom Jacobs ought to be on the front row, really, but he's somebody you get used to seeing at the front. As you say, winner of the first round of the championship, and he's had 3 victories now within the course of the season. So, again, he is jointly with Dennis Melchett the winningest driver. can he get himself up onto the front row of the grid? Because he needs to try and do something here for points, doesn't he? It's a surprise, given 3 wins, that he's only 7th, and a distant 7th at that.
Yeah, it's that sort of non-appearance at Donington really did hurt him, because he was about 4th or 5th in the championship before that, and it's really gone downhill from him after that, I'm afraid. But he's been enjoying this series, though. I know Tom does take a lot of these things. I mean, a lot of these guys do take it very seriously, but Tom sometimes can fall out of love with these series as they go on, and it's easy to do in the sim racing. And then you see people that just don't turn up come the end of the championship because they've not got anything to fight for. But it's good to see that the guys are still turning up and enjoying themselves, and of course I'm very pleased as the organiser to see that. And one person as well, Ben Lambert, he's in the pits at the moment. Ben's got recurring shoulder issues that unfortunately sidelined him for the feature race at Donington, but he's back out there again now between the 2 dodgy MOT machines.
And Dennis Melcher's gone quicker still, hasn't he? He's now done a 52.21 as the absolute best in the session. He's back on track there, he's number 88, so he's now 0.13 of a second up on Fraser Smith. Now Tom Jacobs has just gone quicker, but stays third for the moment in the times on the timing stream that I'm looking at. But Dennis Melcher looks as though he's going to put himself in the pound seats once again. Now Neil Crowther going quicker, but he's at the bottom of the times. Yeah,
only 200ths off Ben Lambert as well. But the dodgy MOT drivers are not having it their way at the moment. Plans for Season 2, by the way, are in the works. And we do have a bit of an interesting announcement in that we're going to be doing something called Drivers Market between the 2 seasons, where drivers will be given forms to fill in, e-forms as such, like Google Forms, and they get the choice whether they're going to remain in the championship for the 2nd season, obviously given the dates and everything when that's all planned out, and whether they're going to stay in the team that they're in now. And then once all the results from that are collated, the drivers that are either free agents or whether there's spots free, we sort of match them all up, and drivers can then apply for spots at the remaining teams where there is an empty spot. And if there is someone within that team already, they are then the one that decides whether they get that spot or not. So it's going to add a bit of drama to the mid-season, as opposed to people just saying, I'm racing for so-and-so and choosing a team. Just adds a little bit of drama to it that these guys, I'm sure, will all be in favour of. And to be honest, it's just a different way of doing things in the sim racing world, because having preset teams means that I'm very much the Bernie Eccleston and can do whatever I want in this scenario, rather than it be the actual sim racing teams that come along with their own liveries and everything. Oh, is Draycott and Crowther get a bit friendly here?
They do. Draycott is 8th, Crowther is 15th, and it's a Draycott dive, is it? Going into paddock, doors wide open, turns in, and across the front comes Niall Crowther. Boom.
Oh, then he even reverses back into him once he hits the wall as well, just for added measure. But 11 and a half minutes gone then. This is Dave Waldock, your championship leader at the moment, carrying the number 7 in-period number of Ivan Muller and the red windscreen banner as well. Love it. He's only 3/10ths off Dennis Melcher at the moment. Jacobs has gone quicker and gone 2nd, 0.077 off.
But Waldock's only 5th, so he's on the 3rd row of the grid, and he needs to get a wriggle on here if he can before the flag comes out, because he does not want to be that far back if Dennis Melcher's starting on pole position.
He certainly does not. To see how he gets on then into Druids. We'll go on board for a lap. You can see the amount of lock they put on because they're in qualifying and they don't have to worry about the tyres. With this car, it's like something out of an arcade game from like the late 90s. If you play F1 97, all you've got to do is just put more lock on and it just grips, and that's what this car is like. You just put more lock on. If it's understeering wide, stuff it. 900 degrees of lock and it'll go round, but your tyres are only left half a lap. Steve Burke has just gone 4th fastest now, really making his intentions clear. So a good time from Steve as Waldock comes in the pits then. Mustn't have been the lap to write home about. Butler's also gone 5th actually, and he's 1,000th of a second ahead of Josh Rayfield.
And all of that puts David Waldock down to 7th, so he's lost another row on the grid. So either the heroics are going to have to come in the feature race where there are more points, or he's in for a bleak night here. He's going to have to get on with this, isn't he? Because this is not looking terribly impressive for the championship compared to Dennis Melcher, who, on this evidence, is going to put himself back at the head of affairs by the end of the sprint race alone.
Yeah, that's it. And of course 1 point for getting pole position in qualifying as well, so he's going to half the gap. Not that it means that much, exactly. But still, it is 50% of the gap, so it makes every little helps with these championships. We've seen plenty in the past decided by just one championship point, so you never know what this pole position could account for in the end. Ben Lambert just ahead of these crossing the line, and that's Rob Lundgren, who actually did a really good job in qualifying at Snetterton, but it seems now this help from Dennis is in the efforts to try and get him further up the order.
So Dennis Melcher the fastest, from Tom Jacobs, Fraser Smith, Steve Burke doing another good job like he did at Snetterton, because remember he was second in the feature race there, wasn't he? So he's getting himself up towards the pointy end of the grid. Rob Lundgren, who is the second of those two Ericsson Hittaz entries, he is still struggling for qualifying pace, only 13th at the moment, and finding himself on the back foot. He's never really had the pace of Dennis Melcher all season, has he?
No, and the phrase you used at Alton Park was bookending, with Rob at the bottom of the field and Dennis at the top. But he's shown flashes of really good performance. But I think he's a race 2 specialist, is Rob Lundgren. He's just really good at defending and just staying on pace of the cars around him, to be honest. So I think we're going to see a little bit more of that tonight. I'm surprised by Andy Fox. He's just not managed to grab the time and go further up the order. But it's pretty mad that we've not even got a second covering the whole lot, to be fair. And I'm very, very pleased to see that it is that close, but it's
one of the joys of a short lap, isn't it? Brands Indy, Knockhill, always incredibly competitive.
Oh, yeah.
Noel Crowther gets himself up to 14, so he's gone ahead of Ben Lambert for the back of the grid. So the dodgy MOT car ahead of one from the Independent Cup. And how much longer? Oh, flags out. There you go. That answers the question. So Dennis Melcher has done it. He's got his point for pole. And this little gaggle I wouldn't have thought are going to improve because they're busy tripping over themselves.
Yeah, very true. Looks like Fraser Smith is halfway around a lap, but he's not done. There's no improvement yet by the look of it. We'll have to see how he gets on through the final corner. Just trying to see who's further around a lap than. It doesn't seem like anyone else. He's got Niall Crowther. Yeah, and Fraser's actually coming in. Andy Fox has gone off the circuit, so his lap will not count. Here's Draycott at the final corner. He is also going to pit at the end of this. Josh Rayfield will not have crossed the line by the time that started. Morgan Butler, though, he's also going to the pit. So, seems like everyone has actually finished that then. So, it will be another championship point for Dennis Melcher. And that is going to be his 5th pole position of the season. Only him and Fraser Smith have actually managed to do so. And I think over a season that's as short as this, yeah, we weren't going to get many pole sitters, but I tell you what, that's an impressive feat no matter what, that, isn't it?
It is. I mean, you've been saying he's the king of the Jetta, which you could argue, therefore, does stand him in good stead. If anybody is going to be able to adapt to a different circuit each time out, he is going to be that man. But it is still very impressive indeed, yes. So Dennis Melcher, pole position. He's now got to do the hard bit and convert that into the race lead and then into a race win.
Indeed, and we'll have to see how he gets on. Tom Jacobs alongside him, Fraser Smith 3rd, Steve Burke, great qualifying for him, 4th. Morgan Butler will be happy with 5th. Josh Rayfield, car 6, P6. Then we've got Dave Waldock and Michael Blake making it a might just fit 4th row of the grid. Matt Draycott 9th with Carl Jackalette 10th, and it's Derek Robb and Andy Fox on row 6. Rob Lundgren, Niall Crowther and Ben Lambert will round out the back of the grid. So, we're going to keep our eyes on that might just fit row in the middle of the grid there, because those guys, especially Dave Waldock, are the ones that are going to be looking for championship points here. And without further ado then, round 13 of the British Boring Car Championship from Brands Hatch Indy is underway. Quite a bit of wheel spin from Dennis Melcher on the inside line, but he's got a good launch overall. Steve Burke is going to try and go around the outside of Fraser Smith. This is Josh Rayfield just looking around the outside of Morgan Butler. No shenanigans yet. Dave Waldock's actually lost a place to his teammate Michael Blake here. So this championship starting to get away from him. Michael defends from him down the inside almost. Everyone trying to sort it out round Druids. Nice tidy first couple of corners though, and I think, to be honest David, that just shows that these guys know now points are going to be more and more important as they get to the end of the season.
Definitely. Dennis Melcher then converting pole position into the race lead, but he's got Tom Jacobs going after him. And Tom, in turn, getting away just ever so slightly from Fraser Smith. And Jacobs is here to upset Dennis Melcher's championship hopes. In a sense, Tom's got nothing to lose. He can't really win the championship, but he can take race wins. And he's about to have a go as they come out of Clark Curve then for the first time up towards the timing line. Out wide goes Dennis Melcher. Tom Jacobs lines up to get his nose in front then as they come past the pits. He's got the inside line going into paddock, and it's Melcher just ahead as they cross the line. Jacobs has the inside line going into paddock itself. He's up the curb. but Dennis Melcher, brave stuff, that on the outside line, hangs on to the lead, and all of that brings Fraser Smith back into the mix, doesn't it?
I'll tell you what, he did an amazing job at carrying that pace around the outside there. Dennis Melcher side by side in the background is Carl Jacquelet, Matt Draycott and Derek Robb in there as well. Just ahead of them is Dave Waldock though, and Tom Jacobs has gone grass. Wow, he's gone lawn mowing over there. Tom with a very, very big jump in the air. But you've got to think now that Fraser's going to be seeing this and thinking, just let me go, let me try and have a go at him and just try and rein it in a bit. But to be honest, it's been a very, very clean start. But what a train of cars. I mean, all the way down, everyone is right together. This is great stuff.
Except that Melcher now is getting away because the two Nodaphone cars here, with neither of them in for the championship, and after race wins and after the best position they can get for themselves, not for the team, the danger is they're going to squabble, hold each other up, and Dennis Melcher's going to get away. He's just done the fastest lap of the race, as way out wide there goes Josh Rayfield going through, and he's about to lose the place to Michael Blake, who gets up the inside and there's contact. Blake elbows his way through. Josh Rayfield ain't going to like that, so he stands his ground on the inside line, going back down towards Graham Hill Bend. Wait for the next bang. No, they all sort themselves out. But look, Melcher now is getting away. He's up to the tune of 7/10 of a second.
Yeah, he's done a good job. He's managing to just eke out that gap a little bit. As Waldock now looking down the inside of Rayfield. He's got Jacquelet right up his jack seat. Oh, as we've lost, Matt Draycott's gone off and he's in the barrier. Mediocre Cup for Independent, championship leader, and he is off in the wall. Let's have a look at what happened here. Did he just get caught up on the outside, do you reckon?
Let's have a look. He seems to be on his own. Does he get a tag from behind? It's close.
Oh.
He turns in and hits the curb. Yeah, I think there was a bit of contact, but Draycott off the road, and that is not going to help in his quest to outscore Steve Burke, who was ahead of him anyway. So if there is going to be a title to be wrapped up tonight, Matt Draycott's going to have to be a hero in the second race, isn't he?
He really is. I will give this out loud on stream, David. I'm just going to refresh your stream, mate, because I think it's fallen a little bit behind from where I'm streaming from. So just bear with me 2 seconds, mate. And there you go. It was a little bit behind, I think. It's wonderful Discord, everybody, doing what it does best and absolutely ruining streams. The top five, though, at the moment are all where they started, to be honest, and Michael Blake is the only one that's managed to make any real progress. Niall Crowther's gained 2 places. Rob Lundgren, actually, he's gained 3 so far, so 13th into the top 10 for 1 championship point as things stand. So a bit of movement here and there. Niall Crowther going wide. Derek Robb's going to try and get past him now, but Draycott will not be happy about that incident. And to be fair, Derek Robb really didn't have anywhere else to go by the look of it. It's just one of those sort of accordion effects around here, isn't it?
It is, but it's put Draycott down to 15th place. It's taken him out of the points for overall, and of course he came into this third in the standings anyway, so it's very, very disappointing, that, and especially now as the race wears on and the gaps do start to open up a little bit further. It's even harder to get back onto terms with anybody else, whereas Tom Jacobs now coming out of Clark Curve up towards the timing line is getting back on with the job. He is catching up to Dennis Melcher once again, so Jacobs actually is shaken off slightly Fraser Smith as they dive into paddock, and Jacobs now has done the fastest lap of the race even.
Yeah, he's flying. He's just found something in this last lap or so. Really taking it to Dennis Melcher now. And it goes nice and late on the brakes into Druids. Carries really good pace through there. You could just see Draycott at the top of his shot a moment ago. And we have still got a very impressive train here. And I think that these guys, they're just going to be playing it a bit more safe now. We had a lot of argy-bargy as the season began and everyone got their elbows out. But they know just how important every single championship point is now. They've seen it change each week. I post it on Facebook for them all to see and cry about. As Jacobs had a real look down the inside there, but not quite enough this time. But I tell you what, if we look back from Dennis Melcher, I mean, the Jetta isn't the prettiest car in the world, but it's certainly looking racy in the hands of Tom Jacobs here in the Nodaphone machine.
Who has another look to the outside line. That lap, again, fractionally quicker than Melcher. They nose to tail into paddock, turn into the right-hander. Jacobs avoids the curb on the way in, which, of course, can launch you out wide. He moves to the inside line, heading up towards Druids. And while all this is going on, if he gets stuck there, he's going to get caught again by Fraser Smith. So the battle pack is 2, but it won't be long before it's 3. And in fact, that could even bring Steve Burke into the mix as well, as out wide there, look, going through Druids goes Niall Crowther.
Yeah, he's just lost out to Derek Robb there. Derek putting the move on. But we'll go, actually, on board with Steve Burke here. You can see the battle going on ahead. It's just, honestly, just tyre squeal and just I was saying beforehand that it sounds like someone dragging paper cups over a wooden table, because it's just so much horrible tyre squeal. The poor Pirellis, honestly. But to be fair, out of all tyre brands, I'll probably put up with it the best. Maybe a Michelin, I don't know. I don't know if you've got any ties with any of them, David, so I'm going to stop talking there. But Tom Jacobs, that you can see, he is really piling the pressure on. And I think Fraser Smith might be the beneficiary of this if they start scrapping too much. But you've got to think that Dennis now, he won't try and defend too hard. He'll just want to, if Tom gets too aggressive, he'll just try and let him go, I think.
I think you're probably right. Just to finish off your tyre point, I would commend Goodyear's to you with a British Touring Car Championship hat on, and Pirelli's with an SRO hat on. So, you know, you pay your money, you take your choice. Dennis Melchett then, in at the moment the world's widest Jetta, hanging on to this advantage. Tom Jacobs still there behind him, but he's not yet been able to find a way by. That said, he's not yet got too toey about this, has he? He's sitting in the wheel tracks, but he's not darting left and right. He's perhaps weighing up where Melchett is strong, where he is strong, so that when the move comes, it can be the one decisive move that puts him ahead. But Fraser Smith is still in touch as well, so Tom can't hang about. Melchett perhaps just a little bit deeper, a little bit wider into paddock that time, and Jacobs is right there. There's less than a length between them now for the race lead.
It's just getting closer and closer. The pressure is mounting, but to be honest, Dennis doing a good job of soaking it up so far. Steve will be happy to sit in 4th place and take those championship points. He'll be getting 7 for his troubles here. Of course, only 1 point difference per position in the sprint race, so it's just very straightforward. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then in the feature race, it's 25. It's basically the current F1 point system, so it's 25, 18, 15, 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, 1. And everyone does fancy a win in the feature race, but you can't just let the opportunity here in the sprint race to get away from you, can you?
You can't, and Jacobs is on the money, look, because he goes from the outside to the inside, diving into paddock. There's half a gap, but he can't exploit that at the same time as having to keep Fraser Smith at bay while all this is going on. And you've made the point that Dennis Melchett is on target potentially for a win and the championship lead once more. Dave Waldock is still stuck down in 8th place and he's not making progress, but now Smith on the back of Jacobs. Suddenly the balance shifts here, doesn't it? The battle's on for 2nd rather than for the race lead.
Yeah, Tom's going to be watching in his mirrors a little bit now, and I'm not sure what the team orders will be between the pair of them, whether Fraser just has to wait or whether there's a massive pace difference between the two, whether Tom will let him go. But you can see now Tom is right on the back of Dennis again, but as you were saying, the slipstream isn't really giving them that much around here so that they can make a move down the straight. Dennis has felt the need to go defensive on the inside though, now that he's seen that Tom will go for it. Tom goes to the outside. Still not again. He's going to try maybe a cut back, but it's difficult to do around Paddock Hill Bend. We've seen people try it before and get it to work if you get a good run once the compression hits at the bottom of the hill, but these top 3 are showing us a fantastic display at the moment of close, clean racing here. Matt Draycott still at the back of the pack, just up the top of your shot there. Michael Blake has got Josh Rayfield all over the back of him here, and Dave Waldock will probably be hoping that these guys come together and open the door for him.
Yeah, I mean, if Tom Jacobs is going to get the race lead, I would propose it comes at paddock, and the move has got to start round about here. He's going to try and get up the inside, coming out of Clearways into Clark Curve, and then sit there.
Like
he's got to try and get the run, and that is exactly what he's doing right now. He has got his nose in front, but they're going to run side by side past the pits. Tom Jacobs has his nose in front. He's got to try and stand his ground all the way into Paddock Hill Bend now. Dennis Melchett can't really cut across and do anything. He's going to be the last of the late breakers, but the door was open. Jacobs exploits it. Through he goes. Good move. Starts at Clearways, finishes at Paddock, or does it? Because Melchett's back up the inside going into Druids. He'll break as late as he possibly dares. They're still side by side, and the road will go back the way of Jacobs. He's going to be on the inside for Graham Hill Bend, so Melchett briefly gets his nose back in front, and there you go for 3/4 of a lap side by side, and only now does it finally resolve itself. Advantage Jacobs. Great racing.
Beautifully done, absolutely beautiful. And I tell you what, David, I don't know where you've got that crystal ball from, but I want one. That was just so tidy though, and Dennis of course gave him plenty of room as well. It was lovely to see that he was being so respectful. Fraser Smith will be a bit gutted that he hasn't made it through as well. This battle's still going on though. It's the 2 Nodaphone cars against the, 2 Netcode cars against the Might Just Fit machines. This is Josh Rayfield all over the back of Michael Blake, while Morgan Butler and Steve Burke sit in the middle and just think, yeah, we'll just sweep up these championship points you boys have left lying around here, don't you worry. But it's quite, I was going to say it's a bit of a stalemate here as Michael Blake runs a bit wide. Josh Rayfield down the inside into Druids, gets his nose down the inside. There's going to be a bit of contact. Please don't wheel bang, boys. We've seen these cars jump around like mad when they do so. Side by side in the background, as well as Andy Fox and Rob Lundgren. Andy Fox hasn't been setting the world alight this afternoon, or this evening I should say. Josh Rayfield around the outside of Graham Hill. Ben, nicely done, but he's not going to get rid of the overlap before clearways, David.
Going to have to struggle to do it. No, he's not going to be able to do it there, but he's got the inside line for this whole next sequence. So again, the road will come to him, but he goes out wide, and that gives the advantage back to Michael Blake on the inside line. So Blake, if you like, is doing a Jacobs here. He's got the inside line all the way past the pits, and this should give him the place. I was thinking for a moment Josh Rayfield's car was looking different from Donington, but I think that's because it's on the ground. Down towards paddock they go. Late on the brakes goes Blake. He's got the move, and David Waldock's going to try and find a way through, but to no avail. So Waldock is still stuck down in 8th place, whereas now, look, Melchett is down to 3rd. So it's Jacobs leading and Smith up to 2nd. The championship leader, or soon-to-be championship leader, Dennis Melchett, has been mugged. Now he's down to 3rd.
Yeah, a bit of contact there as well. Fraser really sent up the inside in Druids. I just heard a bit of contact in the background between Blake and Rayfield. Waldock and Jackalette are in this as well now. It's a nice little bit of a pattern going on here, but I tell you what, it's not going to be by the end of the race, I can tell you that. Just over 12 minutes gone then of this 15-minute race. What great racing we're seeing here from Brands Hatch Indy. I knew this was going to be a good meeting, and I tell you what, this first race has been amazing. I can't wait for the second one. Throw a pit stop in and it's going to get even more exciting, because I tell you...
Yeah, we're not done yet.
Oh, yeah, definitely not. And I don't think we're going to see him this spread out in the feature either, to be honest. It's probably going to be even closer. But this is the closest battle on track. Blake he's just trying to hold on at this point and just hit his marks, but it's not that easy in this car.
The other thing that's happening is that Steve Burke is lapping quicker than Dennis Melchett, so the gap 3rd to 4th is coming down, which is bad for Dennis, good for Steve, but that's another little battle that might develop just before the very end. There they are, look, Steve Burke sort of shouting, wait for me, and he is taking Morgan Butler with him, so you've got a quintet now, quarrelling quintet for the race lead, pretty much, with Dennis Melchett's pace suddenly ebbing away, loses the lead, loses 2nd, and look, Steve Burke has benefited from all of that squabbling, and he's right up there with them. And Morgan Butler is oh so close in 5th place now.
Yeah, and I tell you what, I think Dennis may have pushed it a bit too hard at the beginning of the race and worn his tyres out. Tom Jacobs is looking to become the most winningest driver in the series, despite not showing up at Donington Park last week. A bit of gravel there isn't going to help that, though. Michael Blake still holding on ahead of Josh Rayfield. There he is in the Team Netcode car. There's the grill of it, anyway, as they go up towards Druids. 13.5 minutes gone. I think we're going to see just 2 more laps maybe in this one. Josh is just trying to open that door. Michael doesn't want him to, and to be honest, Dave Waldock, he's not being aggressive at this point because he doesn't want to get caught in an incident, and he just needs to take those points. He's only going to get 3 points for this, whereas Dennis Melchett is going to get 8, so he's going to be 4 points behind in the championship come the start of the second race, and it just shows you how quickly that can turn around. But of course, the difference between the points in the second race will be bigger, and I think we may get another lap after this one. He's just crossed the line with, I don't know, you know. We're going to have to keep an eye on Tom Jacobs here, because this may be the last lap of the race. So we'll come back to him, because they're a bit spread out. The timer may just tick over beforehand, but Waldock and Jackalette having a bit of a move around there on the brakes. Oh, there's contact! Jackalette hits Waldock into Rayfield, more contact again. Andy Fox straight through the middle. Thank you very much, he says. Waldock down to 10th place now and 1 championship point. They're going to be 3 wide into Graham Hill. Please don't do it again, boys. But Dave Waldock playing the respectful game there and stopping, and that's really compromised him. But round the final corner, I believe he's got 5 seconds to do it. And Steve Burke there down the inside of Dennis Melchett. Is he going to get that done? Tom Jacobs is going to take his 4th race win of the season. Brilliant job by Tom. 1-2 for Nodaphone again at Brands Hatch. Dennis Melchett finishes 3rd. Butler 5th behind Steve Burke. Michael Blake is 6th. Josh Rayfield has come in the pits, so Dave Waldock is going to finish 9th in that one. But wow, what a great race that was though, David. Some great respectful stuff.
There was, except on that last lap, because it all got a bit fractious up at Druids, didn't it? But Tom Jacobs, outstanding drive that. Another good effort by Fraser Smith, and Dennis Melchett, disappointing that. I mean, he led more laps than anybody, but he wasn't up front when it counted. This was all the fun and games up at Druids, and yeah, you've got to feel a bit for Josh Rayfield there, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely. It was Jackalette went down the inside a bit late on the brakes into the back of his teammate, into the back of Dave Waldock, who then hit Josh Rayfield. But Tom Jacobs, though, 4 race wins this season, the most winningest driver in the series, and he can be very, very happy with that. He may not be right up there in the championship fight, but he will be over the moon to have had such a result. So there you go, the second Nodaphone 1-2 of the season for Tom Jacobs and Fraser Smith, finally getting a good result in the championship. Dennis Melchett, he'll be happy with the podium, but I'll tell you what, he nearly lost out there. Steve Burke wins the Mediocre Cup for Independence in that race by a long shot as well. Morgan Butler finishes 5th, that's some good points for him, with Michael Blake 6th. Andy Fox eventually recovered to 7th after that incident ahead of him. Rob Lundgren took advantage of it as well and finished 8th. Dave Waldock only 2 points for 9th position there, so he is now going to be 5 points down in the championship, with Jackalette rounding out your top 10, another point for him. Derek Robb, car 11, P11, with Niall Crowther eventually 12th, Ben Lambert 13th. Matt Draycott will want a good reverse grid here to start near the front, with Josh Rayfield in 15th place. So, the reverse grid then, it's 10th down to 16th. Of course, in this case, it'll be 10th to 15th. They all finished on the lead lap. So, it's going to be a case of, do we get a full grid, or does Matt Draycott just miss out on this opportunity then? I'm going to press the button ready. I'm going to hold it down for the formula. There it goes. And... do you want to have a guess?
14th, I reckon, Draycott pole.
13th, Ben Lambert takes pole position. Draycott just missing out. So Ben Lambert and Niall Crowther, the two best mates on the front row. Derek Robb and Carl Jackalette will be on row 2, with Dave Waldock lining up 5th. And Matt Draycott and Josh Rayfield, unfortunately, will be the last 2 on the grid for this second race. So, we're just going to take a bit of a break here in the British Boring Car Championship. We're going to do a bit of maths in the background as well and see what all the gaps come out at. But if you join David and I in about 10 minutes, we'll be back with you for round 14 of the championship. Don't go away.
Those nights when we were younger and we would never sleep. So let's forget about tomorrow and live for tonight while we're free. touch the sky. Tonight we're coming alive. Touch the sky. Tonight we're coming alive. Sunlight is not enough. We could burn like a flame through the atmosphere. Yeah. Starlight, it's calling us. Leave the ghosts of our past in the stratosphere. Oh yeah, yeah, it's calling us.
Welcome back, everybody, to the British Boring Car Championship. Round 14 coming up for you in just a moment. Chaz Draycott here with David Addison in the box. And, well, that was a real treat, that first race, wasn't it, David? Nose to tail all the way. Hey there, buddy.
I'll try again. A proper touring car race there. It was full of drama, full of overtaking, full of incident, and as you would expect at this time of season, it shuffled the championship order. So you got a new championship leader in Dennis Melchett from David Waldock, Matt Draycott. You've then got Andy Fox, who's gained a place within the championship up to 4th, and you've got 3 drivers tied on points to be 5th, equal in the standings. So there is still a lot to play for.
Yeah, definitely. It just shows you as well, with the only the slight point differences between the positions in the sprint race, it really does go one way or the other, and these guys have done an amazing job at keeping it so consistent in most cases all season, as Andy Fox there becomes very consistent with the wall. But Dennis Melchett, you know, he's someone that really needed to turn it round. He got minimal amount of points out of the last 2 race meetings, and now he's managed to obviously get back ahead of Dave Waldock in the championship. So 1 race meeting to go after this one, of course, Silverstone, where I did reveal to some of the guys today that we're going to have some very fancy liveries. Not fancy as in being different, but there's going to be a lot of chrome and metallics and things, as it's going to be the last race meeting of the season. So we're going to see some fancy bits, which should be good. But I know the
night race.
Yes, the night race to replicate like we had in 2000 at the end of the season. So
those are the days.
Oh, yeah, I know, yeah. Alan Menu, Anthony Reid and Rickard Rydell all going for the championship in the same team in the final race of the season, where the Hondas just drove away from everybody. Not that most people would remember that, but you sort of get tuned into stuff like that, don't you, as a commentator? You notice the details.
Yes, I remember looking down on it from the old Woodcote Tower, and it was quite a sight, that, with the rapid fit Mondeos and the orange glow from the brakes as the night wore on. It was very spectacular indeed.
I can imagine, and I'm incredibly jealous that you got to see it live, because I've only ever had a VHS of it. But yeah, we've actually got as well, just looking at the points between these guys in terms of, let's just have a look here. So Dennis Melchett, 123 points in the championship at the moment. He is 5 points clear of Dave Waldock. Dennis is 39 points ahead of Matt Draycott, who has only got 2 points over Andy Fox. Josh Rayfield, Michael Blake and Tom Jacobs are all tied on 79. 4th, 5th and 6th.
With 3 races to go. So, yes, a lot can yet happen there.
Yeah, definitely.
Tom Jacobs, when you bring him up like that, give him 10 points there, bring him back into the mix, he must think, as you see Mayhem, including Tom Jacobs up at Druids, he must think if only had a done Donington, you know, because he could have been a contender, as they say.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it just took 1 race this season for him to show just how quick he was. I mean, he really controlled that race. Dave Waldock was leading most of it, and then Tom took it from him and held it from there in the very first round of the season. So he's got race winning. I mean, he's the most winningest driver of the season so far, and it's just a shame that he's not right up there, to be honest. I mean, just having a look as well. Yeah, it's just Dennis on 3 wins. Josh Rayfield's got 2, don't forget. He's won 2 feature races.
Yes.
And then our other race winners
Tom
are
Jacobs now 4.
Michael Blake, Andy Fox and Dave Waldock, and Jack Werrell, of course, as well, the other race winners. Got a couple of guys in the chat. Rob Lundgren saying he's soaked. That was a fun race. Ian Fox says it was a great race. Let's hope the same for the next one. Louis Hanker in the chat. Hello, my friend. Chloe Sudlow says it's sick. Good to see you, Chloe. I hope Gally's watching as well. Fraser Smith enjoyed that one. Tom Jacobs' dad Ashley is watching as well. Good to see you, Ash. I know you enjoyed that one, mate. He'll be very pleased with that. His dad is a very big supporter of Tom and his sim racing, so good to see him out as always. But this is the thing. I mean, there are even a lot of supporters for drivers in sim racing, not just real motorsport as well. And it's, you know, it's got a similar. You mentioned the BTCC family earlier. But there's so many sort of groups within sim racing as well that are similar, and it's nice to see that it reflects in both worlds, isn't it?
It is, and as we've said already in the course of this season, sim racing has had such a boost because of lockdown and so much more attention. And yes, okay, it is going to dwindle a little bit as real world racing starts again.
Oh, yeah.
But equally, there are certain areas of the world, like Asia, which still aren't able to go racing. You know, we're ahead of Asia, even though perhaps because COVID-19 started there, you might expect them to be over the worst ahead of us. They're not. SRO are now planning, they've talked to competitors today and issued the information, a a GT Asia esports championship, and what they've done quite cleverly is position that for early in the week. So real world drivers that want to take part in it can do so, and it shouldn't impact on a weekend where they might be racing somewhere maybe in Europe, or indeed late in the week travelling to it. So it's early in a week and it should fit, but there are still opportunities for sim racing to prosper, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely, and that's the thing. There's always something going on in sim racing. I mean, just this weekend. I mean, we're both doing real world commentary as well. You're obviously doing the British Touring Car Championship, and I'm actually heading down to PFI to do Kart Masters for the weekend. And the fact that it's all starting again, but we can still in the week come and enjoy something like this is one of the beauties of sim racing, I think. And I'm very grateful for the fact that it is always going on like that. But we have a grid before us now. Ben Lambert is on pole position alongside Niall Crowther. Derek Robb and Carl Jacquelet make up row 2. Watch out for Derek in this one. Could finally get that first win. Dave Waldock 5th with Rob Lundgren 6th. I'm going to have to fly through because they're all on the grid. Then it's Andy Fox, Michael Blake, Morgan Butler, Steve Burke, Dennis Melcher, Fraser Smith, Tom Jacobs, Matt Draycott and Josh Rayfield. And round 14 of the British Boring Car Championship from Brands Hatch is away. Very tame start by the look of it. Niall Crowther's going to try and go around the outside of Ben Lambert. It's not going to work. Michael Blake here side by side with Andy Fox. You've got Morgan Butler and Steve Burke side by side in there as well. They've gone a bit sideways. That's Steve Burke now on the back foot to Matt Draycott when it comes to the Independence Championship. We'll look back at the front. And Derek Robb, as I said, David, he's going to be looking to get that win here. He wants to get these places off Niall Crowther and Ben Lambert ASAP.
He does indeed, although Ben Lambert hangs on to the advantage. Look, as they come on to bottom straight for the first time. Ben Lambert trying to get away. Draycott getting himself up the order. There's mayhem in the background because Andy Fox has been involved, and he's not the only one in that, is he, as well? Because Michael Blake, I think, was there too. So drama coming out of Graham Hill Bend. Lambert will lead to the end of lap 1, and everybody else is trying to be second at the moment.
That's crazy stuff. It was actually Morgan Butler that had tangled with.
How was it?
With. I can't remember the other one now. Andy Fox, sorry.
Andy Fox, yes.
This is getting feisty though. Jacquelet and Robb not giving each other any space at all. Dave Waldock's going to be watching this thinking, don't have an accident, boys. I don't want to get caught up in it. This is Derek now looking to the inside of Carl Jacquelet into Druids on the brakes a bit. Carl's gone a bit deep in there. He's done all right though. And Rob Lundgren is trying to get amongst this. So before we had the two might just fit cars with the Team Netcode machines. Now it's the two might just fit cars with Ericsson hits us as Michael Blake looks down the inside. Doesn't work. Dennis Melcher gets a great cutback though. And, well, these guys are treating this like it's a sprint race already here. Don't forget they do have a pit stop. Draycott's into the points in 10th place. But now Steve Burke further down the order with that damage, of course, on the left-hand side. But at Donington Park, he was actually last on the first lap at Donington Park and managed to still finish in, I think it was 4th place in the feature race. So let's see if he can bring it back again, although there is big damage to the front left suspension out of the car. It looks almost like it's got a flat tyre, actually, and it's not often you see that simulated in iRacing, but it does happen.
But he has gained 2 places because of the dramas that Morgan Butler and Andy Fox suffered. Fastest lap of the race has just gone to Matt Draycott. He says, tapping his timing screen. No, it's right, Matt Draycott, fastest man on the circuit. There you go, I've lost my broadcasting virginity now. I've said Matt Draycott's the fastest man in the race. Down to Graham Hill Bend they come. Ben Lambert's advantage is only half a second, so he's not yet getting away, is he?
No, definitely not. He's got to keep watching his mirrors, but he'll be happy to still be leading the race at this point, though. Ben has done nothing but put his own pace down all season, to be honest, but he's doing a fine job at the moment. This is Fraser Smith and Michael Blake. Really getting friendly into clearways. Draycott's going to try and take the advantage of that down the inside. And to be honest, looking at Steve Burke's car, that front left definitely looks like a flat tyre. And you can see all the smoke coming from it as well when he goes round. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll go on one of my very favourite cameras. We'll go on the left front suspension. You will see it clipping through the ground here as we go around. You can see the pixels as it doesn't actually blur. Yeah, there's a lot of steering lock going on there for not a lot of turning. Just ahead as well, Derek Robb has actually got past Dennis Melcher. He's just gone back down the inside. Dennis did get ahead, but Derek's done the switch back on him. And Dave Waldock there going down the inside of Carl Jacquelet for 3rd. So he is now going to try and get back up to the front because Jacquelet was trying to defend there. So this is all just a bit of shimmying around at the moment. Everyone's trying to sort it out, but I think once the pit stops come into this one, the order's going to be very interesting come the second half of this race.
Josh Rayfield up past Steve Burke, so he's gone 12th, and David Waldock then up into 3rd place, has done the fastest lap of the race as well, as now we've got the pit stops coming, so both there coming into the pits together, the Nodaphone cars, Jacobs and Smith. Steve Burke, I think, is in as well. So this is where your order starts to shuffle then at the end of lap 4 until lap 10. The pit window is open.
Oh, there's a big moment there for Dave Waldock on 2 wheels down Paddock Hill Bend. Look at this lot. This is for the lead, all of them together. Absolutely side by side everywhere. A bit of contact there between Dennis Melcher. He does not care for Jackalette being in his way. Down the inside and a bit of a turn there. A bit naughty from Dennis Melcher, I think. He might have kept the throttle in, and unfortunately he's come out of that worse. But look at this, Steve Burke, 11-second pit stop. Some of these boys, Fraser Smith and Tom Jacobs, have both sat there for a very long time here. That's a strange one. Very strange one. But Steve Burke, out of all the cars that's pitted, is now actually top. So if he puts some good laps in here, he could end up really high up the order.
It's almost like the Nodaphone cars have got a penalty, isn't it? Because they're still sat there. They're going to lose a lap at this rate.
Yeah, they are.
So what's all this about?
They have done as well. I mean, we've got Ben Lambert and Dave Waldock battling there. He's got Dennis Melcher in his rear view mirror now as well as Dave Waldock, so he really wants to get on with this. Ben Lambert trying not to get in his way. A bit of contact between Melcher and Derek Robb there, and then Rob Lundgren behind them as well. Jackalette will feel very hard done by there because there was the tiniest of contact, and then unfortunately it continued. More contact between Lundgren and Derek Robb. The concertina effect is huge here. But yeah, Tom Jacobs and Fraser Smith are a lap down here, unfortunately. Ben Lambert can't do much to defend from Dennis Melcher as it stands. Into clearways, though. He's going to have the inside line. Dennis a bit sideways and a bit wide on the apex. And he can't come in the pits yet, of course, because Ben Lambert's car's in the way. I've not thought about that as a tactic, actually. Block people from pitting if they miss the pit window. Ha-ha. But no, let's hope they don't do that. But again, some great scrapping near the front here, though, David.
Absolutely. Niall Crowther is trying to make good his escape here. He's over a second to the good at the moment, with David Waldock in second place. Waldock benefiting from Melcher battling with Lambert and therefore being delayed as they climb the hill once more towards Druids. We've got the first fifth of the race done. Lambert classes up the inside of Melcher, fends him off. Rob Lundgren gets in on the act as well.
Oh, no.
Contact, oh dear, in the wall goes, I'm afraid, Derek Robb.
Yeah,
you see that one coming, couldn't you?
Yeah, there was a bit of a touch between Derek Robb. I think Lundgren, oh, this was the previous lap, sorry. Lundgren got into the back of Ben Lambert here and hits him into Melcher. And then if we stay with Lundgren, Derek Robb's in there. He turns across Michael Blake. There's a bit of a tap there on the exit as well. Lundgren sort of hits Derek Robb into Michael Blake, unfortunately. We've got race leader Niall Crowther in the pits with Ben Lambert and Michael Blake. Dave Waldock and Dennis Melcher, though, the two championship protagonists at the moment, are trying to make the most of this clear air as Draycott now on the back of Lundgren.
But Dennis Melcher, because he was in traffic on that last lap, has lapped over a second slower than David Waldock. So the gap is about 2 seconds now between the top two. Lundgren third, Draycott fourth. There they are heading downhill. And again, as you made the point earlier on, Rob Lundgren seems to rise to the occasion more in the feature race, doesn't he? He gets a bit overshadowed in the sprint, but partly because of pit stop shuffling the order, he often finds himself running in that leading group for a period at least in the feature race. However, he's about to get mugged, I think, for third place. Draycott's all over him now like a cheap suit.
He is indeed, and I think, no, he's not pitting this time round, neither is Draycott, so we have Dennis Melcher in the pit lane.
Isn't he?
He is. He's jumped in. He's blinked first, trying the cutback maybe, or the undercut as we call it. But Draycott and Lundgren had a fantastic scrap at Donington Park all race long, with Melcher as well. So I'm happy to see more of the same. Matt said, oh wow, that was a massive jolt backwards there from the contact. Matt just getting away with that, I think, there. But that's part of the wheel banging physics of these jetters. Here's Dennis Melcher coming out of the pits then. Niall Crowther is just there, crossing the line. So Dennis isn't going to be at the front of this. But look, Steve Burke right behind Josh Rayfield in this now. And is he? He's not ahead, or is he just round the outside of Dennis Melcher? That's as close as you like there. So the top three are the only guys not to have pitted now. Draycott, Lundgren and Waldock.
And Rayfield has done the fastest pit stop of anybody, and that really has brought him back into the mix, hasn't it? So he's gained thanks to a quick pit stop. Dennis Melcher wasn't a slow stop, but he was about half a second or so slower than Josh Rayfield, for example. David Waldock is in, and so too now is Rob Lundgren. So Matt Draycott takes over the lead of the race by dint of being the last one out there who has not yet served the mandatory pit stop. There he is at paddock.
And he must do it this lap as well. This is lap 10 of the race. It may be a bit of a shorter window due to the nature of Brands Hatch Indy, but the pit window is lap 4 to lap 10. I'm intrigued to see where Dave Waldock comes out here in comparison to Dennis Melcher. He's actually come out ahead of all of them. Look at that, he's done a brilliant in-lap and he's out ahead of a lot of them. So he is now the highest placed car that's pitted. Rob Lundgren comes out behind his teammate and just ahead of Carl Jacquelet. Steve Burke is right in this as well. He's having to defend from Dennis Melchett. And Matt Draycott, I thought he'd crossed the line then and missed his pit window, but that would have been a terrible meeting for him. But here he is then, coming into the pits. But Dave Waldock, this is the perfect thing he needs here, David, because if he finishes at the top of this race, he's going to get 25 points. Then you've got, what, 18, 15, 12, 10. 15 points he's going to gain on Dennis Melchett from this race, and that would put him 10 points clear in the championship.
So, having had a bad sprint race, the feature race is going to come good potentially for him and bring him back towards the front within the championship, which is great news with only one more meeting to go. He's had a sprint race win, but a feature race win could be heading his way as Matt Draycott lights up the tyres, storms out of the pit lane, but he's going to tumble down the order, isn't he now, because of having stopped late and everybody else doing good pace.
Yeah, it was a slow stop as well, 15 seconds, but to be fair, Lundgren had a longer time in the pit lane. Actually, just a bit less time in the pit lane, but Lundgren mustn't have been as close to the speed limit as Matt was. So Matt's actually jumped him in the pits there to 6th. But that means now that Dave Waldock is your overall race leader with all this going on behind. It's Niall Crowther in 2nd. Niall's doing a great job to remain up there. He's another one that's been putting his pace down a little bit this season, but he'll be very happy with that. Just going to try and have a quick look through at what Niall's best result this season is, actually. I know he's had a couple of, maybe he's finished in the top 6 a few times. He's had a 5th place at Donington Park first time round, and he's had another 5th place at Alton.
He's about to get mugged here, isn't he? Look, because Josh Rayfield's ahead of him. Steve Burke's lining up. So Steve Burke now 4th, having been flat last, going up to Druids on the first lap of the race. Burke in turn has got Melchett crawling all over him as they head up towards Druids. Melchett to the outside line. Rayfield on the outside of Crowther, who wants his 2nd place back. All of which plays into the hands of Waldock, who's now 2 seconds to the good up front because they're holding each other up like this.
Yeah, this fighting is exactly what Dave Waldock wants, especially with Dennis Melchett staying at the back of this train. Although it's a bit of a too wide train at the moment. Oh, Niall Crowther nearly making contact there with Josh Rayfield. Now, Niall and Steve are teammates in the World GT Championship for Team Lizard Motorsport, which is Steve's real-life team. So those two won't want to make contact. A bit further down, Lundgren and Draycott still battling again. And Matt did say, after Donington, he gained a lot of respect for Rob because his pace has really come on and his racecraft was great. The fighting that they had was awesome. And they've got Jacquelet in there as well, hoping for more points. But we do need to look back at this because they're all running wide. Bit of Paris-Dakar simulator going on there. Steve Burke down the inside. And Josh Rayfield, Niall's really lost out there, I'm afraid. But to be honest, it'll be his equal best finish. He's had 2 5th places so far this season. He'll be happy for another one in a feature race for sure.
But Steve Burke's recovery is exceptional, isn't it? Considering that we were worried about the damage on the car for the first few laps. Pitting early, got him back into the mix. Other people have had slower pit stops, and there he is. He's back at the races. He's in 3rd place. Josh Rayfield is only just up the road ahead of him. Through clearways they come then now, but David Waldock, the race leader, 2.5 seconds plus clear. Can Steve Burke find a way past Rayfield before Melchett comes up to have a go at Burke for 3rd place?
Easier said than done sometimes, but you never know. These boys have thrown a lot of surprises to us. We're not even halfway through the race yet, and this is brilliant to watch. I was just having a quick look as well at the Mediocre Cup for Independence Championship as Rayfield's gone off again. Burke is now down the inside. Looked like he was going to go deep there, but this Jetta somehow carries a lot of mid-corner speed around there. Now Rayfield's back on the inside. I don't know where mechanical grip comes from. It's just magic with the Jetta.
I like the way that you said Jetta and speed in the same sentence and kept a straight face.
I know, yeah. It's part of the professional persona that I pretend to have. Steve
That could be it.
down the inside though. Steve's now on the defensive. He was on the offensive a minute ago, and now Niall Crowther wants a bit of this on Dennis Melchett as well. So we've got a great scrap going on here. Loving this between these guys, and I'm going to touch wood very hard. No contact yet because I think we may see it, but you never know. David Waldock, though, he'll be loving it up front.
That spoiled it, hasn't it? Saying there's no contact. Been there, done that. Right, into paddock they go then. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. It's Rayfield, Burke, Melchett, Crowther. Niall Crowther, you get the feeling he's going to drop away from this because having lost ground, he's not making it back up again, despite the best efforts of Burke and Melchett to delay one another. But Josh Rayfield ain't getting away either. So now, look up the road. David Waldock is that little dot in the distance. He's 3 seconds to the good now. You might have to think about traffic before much longer. Derek Robb further up the road, but he has certainly shaken off that battle pack behind as Draycott for 6th is under attack from Lundgren, and Carl Jacquelet has joined the party as well.
Yeah, Jacquelette's got a front row seat for this. The epic battle that we saw last week has resumed, it seems. Rob goes a little bit deep into clearways, but you can often get a really good run out of there with that. It's almost like a slingshot out of there. I was just looking at the Independence Cup as well, the Mediocre Cup for Independence. Matt Draycott has 24 points clear, so he needs to get 12 more points than Steve in this race to be champion. And I don't think we're going to see that as Jacquelette. Wow, that was rallycross-like manoeuvrability there from the Jetta somehow. Steve Burke's actually just gone down up into second place, I should say.
Yeah, down the inside at Druids, makes it stick, so he goes through, back on the inside, tries to go Josh Rayfield, but he's not going to be able to do that. If he goes out wide, Dennis Melchett will get the run on him. Track limit seems to be well ignored at Graham Hill Bend in this championship, doesn't it? Because they are way away the wrong side of the curbs. That would get MSV terribly wound up, I suspect, if it were real-world racing. But Melchett's still stuck. He can't find a way past Rayfield. Can Steve Burke get away as 3 seconds clear up the road still is David Waldock, looking as though win number 2 is going to come. And with this being a feature race, the points that he's going to get will be invaluable.
Definitely, definitely. It's certainly a good opportunity as a feature race to get some big points and move yourself up. As it stands, Steve Burke will get 18 points for this, and Matt Draycott will only get, I believe, 8 points. So 10 points Steve will gain. Doesn't take a mathematician to work that out. Brennan Huran in the chat, by the way, said, I just love hearing David Addison being a part of a commentary team. Straight from Imola to Brands Hatch. And yeah, how was the flight?
Well, I have to come clean. We had to do that one in the UK, I'm afraid, from the studio. Everybody else seemed to go, but we were doing it remotely. But we managed to pretend we were there. We bought some Italian wine just to try and make ourselves feel at home. But the future SRO ones will be done on site, and we're definitely at Donington for touring cars this weekend. But doesn't matter what the category is, it's still good to see some racing. And for second, third, and fourth, they're hard at it. Down towards paddock they go. But Dennis Melchett, I'm surprised here, Chaz, is not making progress, is he? He's stuck and can't find a way through.
Yeah, he's just hit a wall, really. And, I mean, Crowther's not falling off too much at this point. But, yeah, Dennis he seems to be really quick at the beginning, and then he must kill his tyres or something, because just as the race goes on, it seems to fall downhill a little bit for him, I'm afraid. But plenty of track limits avoidance there by those guys. You can actually get an incident point for running that wide there. And, of course, these guys do get penalties. They get a drive-through if they get 25 incidents in the feature race, which, to be honest, they shouldn't get, because that's ridiculous. But we've seen it happen. I mean, Alton Park was a Destruction Derby race in race 2, which was very entertaining for us in the commentary box, but for the 3 or 4 guys that got drive-through penalties, it wasn't so. But this is Rob Lundgren trying to paint the front of his car black here with the rear of Matt Draycott's car. We're 16.5 minutes away through the race, 8.5 minutes left to go here, and there's plenty of time for it to go. Pete Tongs, Jacquelette pretends he's in Initial D there, trucking the car in sideways. There was some Eurobeat music playing in the background for a second there, but wow, that was amazing stuff. Nice save, but again, front wheel drive. We saw Plato do it in a Lassetti there years ago. You just keep your foot in, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, that was almost the line they used to take in the halcyon days onto the rallycross course, tumble downhill. You can see the end of that at the foot of the hill, but that was a good save, that was, for sure. Right, now, what can Dennis Melchett do about Josh Rayfield? Because thus far, the answer is 2/5 of naff all. He's staring at the back of him. He can't find a way by. He can't unsettle him. Rayfield actually is in this invidious position of trying to attack and defend at the same time. So he's focusing on trying to get past Steve Burke and position the car so that Dennis Melchett can't get past him. But while all this is going on, they're fractionally closer to David Waldock, only by a tenth or so, but the gap has just come down by a Nat semi-crotchet between first and second. So Steve Burke is not yet having to give up on thoughts of the race lead, especially as the leader is coming across back markers.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, we didn't really expect to see much traffic over the course of this championship. Dave Waldock's traffic is his teammate, Michael Blake, though. So I imagine Michael won't make this difficult for him. And I also imagine that he may not quite get out of the way as quickly as he would for David for the other guys. As there you go, makes it nice and easy down the not quite straight here at Brands Hatch. Over the line.
What a vivid imagination you have. Yes, it was planned, wasn't it? That.
Very nice military precision there from Michael Blake, who unfortunately hasn't quite had the race 2 to remember. We had a bit of a curse for him in the sort of first half of the season, didn't we, with race 2, and now he seems to have returned after he took a win at Snetterton.
Indeed, yes, he's actually lost 7 places, has Michael Blake. So there's Blake 7, but I'm afraid it's 7 lost rather than 7 gained. If you're not an old so-and-so, Blake 7 was an awful sci-fi programme 100 years ago. So Michael Blake is flat last. David Waldock leads, and the gap is right down. Remember, it was 3 seconds a lap ago. Well, it's down to 2.6. So even if his teammate got out of the way, it has still cost him a little bit of time. Now we'll see whether Burke, Rayfield and Melchett, well-known firm of solicitors, can get onto terms with him. Here they come, at a Clark curve, and about to break the timing beam.
One thing that we haven't really spoken about much this race, these pair. What has gone on here at Nodaphone? Something has gone, like, I don't know whether they both had like a penalty for jumping the start or something, or whether they got...
I mean, they lost that lap in the pits, didn't they? But we don't know why they lost the lap in the pits.
It's a very strange one. We will speak to them afterwards. Brennan Horan has also said he's waiting to hear from John Watson in the pit lane. With the track's limits abuse here and what you were telling me earlier, it's probably not the time to bring in John Watson, to be honest. He'll go on a rant. But,
he would go on a rant, and especially if you give him points to the top 10. That's far too many people to get points in what is the world. Yes, just like that.
For sure. Someone that will be grateful that you get points, not just to 6th place though, will be Matt Draycott at this point, because he's got to think about this Independence Championship, because with 1 race meeting to go, and that gap is really going to decrease down to, what, 19 points. Steve Burke is in a real good position here, and what a great story as well, Steve Burke. The recovery man, he has an absolutely terrible first lap, and then what a recovery. He just pushed that car around with the damage, dealt with it, and that was it. Fraser Smith, despite still racing, has actually just typed in the YouTube chat as well. So there's multitasking for you. 40-second penalty in the pits for both of them.
For what reason, do we know?
That would have been jumping the start, I believe.
Right, okay.
So Nodaphone, while they could have getting a 1-2 in the first race, they're going to get a 13th and 14th in race 2. But they're having a good little battle amongst themselves, though. I mean, I'm sure they're still enjoying themselves. But yeah, it's a shame that they've dropped down so much, because I was quite excited to see how they made their way back through.
Exactly. Now, this lead gap is coming down and down and down.
It is.
3 laps ago, it was 3 seconds. It's now halved. It's 1.5, 1.4 going into paddock. So Steve Burke, despite his accident, despite the damage, despite the squabbling, despite the defensive driving, is still closing on David Waldock, who now needs Michael Blake to be the cushion for him. He has got to try and get in the way and hold them all up, because Waldock does not have the pace anymore.
He doesn't, and Fraser Smith, by the way, has confirmed it was pit entry, so they were speeding the pits on the way in. So
right.
it basically, you can get given the penalty there and then serve it in that pit stop. So it's quite friendly of it to allow them to do that, because I know that in a lot of real series you wouldn't be able to. But yeah, that gap has completely diminished. 1.2 seconds now, with 3 minutes of this race to go, or 3 minutes and 20 seconds anyway. So we'll probably get a good 4 laps out of this. And at the rate that they're going, Dave Waldock is not going to hang on for that long here, David. It's becoming a real pressure point for him.
It's almost like a handicap race, isn't it? Where, you know, people catch up right at the very end. But the spoiler in the pack is going to be Michael Blake, because Steve Burke has got to get past him as soon as he possibly can. Otherwise, Waldock will gain the time back again. So what David Waldock doesn't have in pure pace, he might be able to benefit from having a teammate who is a little bit distracted and perhaps doesn't see what's going on in his mirrors.
Yeah, you'd think that Michael would move out of the way quite easily, but to be honest, he's on pace with these guys at the minute, and I don't think he's going to cause that much of a distraction. We'll have to wait and see, but I know that he will want to at least help out his teammate here. He's playing the rear gunner, as the phrase likes to crop up. But it's been a good battle for these guys, because they've sort of held position quite nicely here, knowing that together they can make their way forward. Once they stopped battling, they have really closed in. I mean, as Louis Hanker has said in the YouTube chat, they're half a second a lap. Steve goes down the inside, Michael jumps out of the way, and look at them, they compress straight away into the Volkswagen Centipede, and suddenly Melchett then pushing Rayfield round Druids. But this is it now. Steve is in the clear air to attack Dave Waldock, and at the end of the day, I'm quite pleased that Michael Blake didn't cause an issue there, because
exactly.
he had the opportunity to, and he showed the better sort of judgment is the better part of valour on that one, is that the phrase? He just got out of the way.
It'll do for the moment. Yeah, yeah. He did the right thing, certainly. So he's not impeded anybody. He's not benefited anybody. So yeah, Steve Burke lost a couple of tenths in all of that, but he's very much still in with a shout. 0.6 of a second is the margin as they cross the line. We've got about a minute and a half to go, so certainly 2 more laps. Down through paddock they turn, and Steve Burke still having to be mindful of where Josh Rayfield is. Rayfield's out wide, as you see, coming out of paddock. So can Steve Burke get close enough to David Waldock now before the end of the race? He is just over half a second adrift.
This is tantalising, really is tantalising. I'd be very pleased for Steve to see him take a win and, of course, get another race winner in the British Touring Car Championship. But Brands Hatch Indy has thrown up a real treat for us this evening, and we have 1 lap to go now after this one. The gap is down to half a second. We'll show you the gap just between Steve and Dave Waldock in the bottom right of your screen, even though it's in yellow, so it's nice and difficult to read for you as well. Brilliant. As Ben Lambert's just gone off the circuit in the background and dropped out of the points. That's technology on my side once again. But this is it now then. We'll go on board with Steve Burke then through Paddock Hill Bend. You can see Dave Waldock just tapping the brakes a little bit just to try and bring the car around. Onto the brakes they go into Druids. Nice and controlled, but look at that. Steve really closing on the brakes, and I think... I don't know whether he's going to get the chance here, and I really hope that it doesn't come down to a last-ditch effort with contact. We'll have to see.
I think he needs 1 more lap, because if he's going to try that Clearways exit move, he might run out of straight, because it would normally work perhaps going into paddock, but it's going to be close to this. The gap is less than ever before. It's down to just over 0.3 of a second. David Waldock might have done enough, because Steve Burke is going to have to be very late on the brakes through Clearways to try and prise open the door, but he's not near enough. So David Waldock is going to hang on, Chaz.
He is indeed. Around the final corner he goes. That'll be a weight off his shoulders. Dave Waldock takes round 14 of the championship, and with it the championship lead heading into the final race meeting of the season. Steve Burke a brilliant second place after that. Josh Rayfield gained 12 places there to finish third from the very back of the grid. We didn't actually notice that till now, to be fair. What a drive from Josh Rayfield. Niall Crowther, equal best for him, 5th place. Matt Draycott 6th, just ahead of the dicing Rob Lundgren and Carl Jacquelet. Andy Fox, bit of a disappointing evening for him in 9th, and Morgan Butler takes the final point, despite as well he was actually involved in that incident with Michael Blake early on as well. So some very good recovery drives from these guys, but Dave Waldock is the man of the hour and back into the championship lead after a very difficult first race, David.
Absolutely, and a great drive that. I mean, it doesn't matter what the margin is that you win by, as long as you win, and he was able to control that pace. He perhaps was mindful of how close they were, but he didn't put a wheel wrong, didn't crack under pressure, didn't throw the car off the road, kept his counsel, came through, scored the race win, gets back into the lead of the championship, and his first feature race victory. Job well done, I reckon.
Yeah, definitely, and he deserves that championship lead, and to be honest, I think that the fact that it is still so close between him and Dennis will be a real corker. But look at that, the top 4 separated by less than a second after a 25-minute race with a pit stop. Just highlights how this series has really panned out to be a real belter. But Dave Waldock takes your race win. Steve Burke, I really hope we get to speak to Steve, because he's going to be over the moon with that second place. Josh Rayfield 3rd as well. An amazing podium after starting last on the grid. Dennis Melcher finishes in 4th. He'll be pretty pleased with that, because it seemed like a very hard job out there. Niall Crowther, another one. Equal best finish for him. 3 5th places this season, so plenty of points there. Matt Draycott, again, bit of damage limitation there. But Rob Lundgren never really left his side, did he? It was very close between those guys there. Carl Jacquelet, 8th. Andy Fox, 9th. And Morgan Butler rounds out your 10, just ahead of Derek Robb. Tom Jacobs and Fraser Smith, unfortunately, having a bit of a nightmare in that one there with the penalties in the pit lane. Michael Blake finished in 14th, 1 lap down after that. And Ben Lambert, unfortunately, had an incident towards the end of the race and did not finish that one, I'm afraid. So I hope the recurring shoulder issue wasn't a part of that. I hope he's okay. But another amazing race meeting, and as expected, David, we've got a hell of a lot of people in the interview room waiting. I'm going to see whether Dave Waldock does jump in there, but before we do so, I want to drag in the second place finisher in that one, because what a drive. I mean, Steve, good to see you, mate. You'll be absolutely over the moon with that, surely. After the incident on lap 1, a damaged car, to then have such a great fight and finish second must have been brilliant.
Yeah, that was really intense. I must admit, I thought it was all over after turn 1. I think me and Tom just went round sideways together, and yeah, just I thought that was it. But yeah, good fight back up the chain.
Yeah, definitely. And talk me through the sort of latter stage of that race, because we noticed that you guys were battling quite a lot, but then come the last sort of 8 minutes or so, you all seemed to just realise that if you worked together you could catch up to Dave Waldock. Did you feel like that was the consensus, or did it just sort of take it into its own hands?
Yeah, initially me and Josh were fighting with each other, and we realised that we were just going to continually lose time. I think Dennis was out for blood. He wanted the place, but yeah, we worked together for a bit, and then yeah, Josh went wide at paddock, and I thought, well, stick it up the inside into Druids, and if I pull away, I do. If I don't, I don't, sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're just seeing the car now with the damage. It's on 3 wheels around the final corner at Clearways, and it actually looked like one of the few times I've seen iRacing simulate a flat tyre. Was that what it felt like you had?
Oh, it was horrendous after the first after the hit initially. Yeah, the steering wheel was all over the place. So yeah, it was just a case of nursing it through 4 laps in order to get that quick repair and get back out.
Well, to be fair, you say nursing it just as we see it come down Paddock Hill on 2 wheels sideways, so there's a lot of nursing going on there, to be honest. But I mean, David and I were very, very intrigued by how quickly that gap went down, weren't we?
Yeah, and also, I mean, that pit window, Steve, being early in the race, did you a favour, didn't it? Had it been, for example, laps 10 to 15, you'd have struggled, but because it was from lap 4 onwards, that was absolutely ideal for you, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. I mean, just trying to coax the car into the pits 4 laps in, and then I came out and there was only a few cars around me, and with a fixed car, it felt much better.
Yeah, it sort of reinstalls your confidence to just chuck it in a bit, I suppose, doesn't it? When you get used to having a car that isn't quite behaving itself, when you get one that's as intended, it really does restore some faith. But honestly, mate, brilliant drive that. You must be very happy too as well. Thinking about the championship, you've closed right in on Matt now as well in the independents.
Yeah, at the start of the evening, Matt said that he needed to beat me in one of the races to make that championship sort of void, and he would win it. So, yeah, I thought let's not have that.
Love it, pup lovely. But before we let you go, though, Steve, do you want to give a shout out to anybody, mate?
Just the 2 of you for hosting, putting on the race, and Niall.
Love it. Great to speak to you as always, Steve. I'll see you soon, mate.
You too.
Well,
cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Bye.
Such a character is Steve Burke as well. He's honestly one of the driest people I know. He's just absolutely hilarious. You take your next pick, David. Who do you want out of the interview waiting room?
Well, let's have a go at Matt Draycott, shall we? Because he's got some explaining to do.
I could have guessed. Matt joins us.
Matt, on a scale of 1 to horrendous, how average do you think you were tonight?
Minus 900. I don't know. Absolutely terrible.
It's not been your night, is it?
No. You know what it was? It's because Chaz told me that I could have won the independents tonight.
Well, funnily enough, that's what spurred Steve Burke on to do well. He said, "Wow,
and
that was
the worst thing I said.
We've just seen your car do an absolute belly flop into Clearways as well." So, yeah, it sort of highlights that it wasn't the easiest of circuits, despite the short nature of it tonight.
No, it was.
Sprint race wasn't entirely your fault, was it? You got drilled early on in the sprint race, and it went from there, I guess.
Yeah, it was just a track day then, really. I just kept waving at him every time I went through the first corner because I could see him exiting the second corner. Just waving at them all.
Right, well, thank you so much for joining us in the chat room. We've got quick people. We must talk to them.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, you know.
So much. Yes. Well done on almost losing your championship lead, but it's made it exciting for the last 2 races. So well done, Matt. You let it dwindle. It gives us more to talk about. Well done.
Aim to please.
Absolutely.
Well, we'll
next.
We'll speak to you very, very soon, Matt. Nice one.
See you in a bit.
Love it. We have just had news as well that a certain feature race winner and championship leader is ready for an interview. Dave Waldock joins us in the chat. Dave, you must be beaming, mate.
Oh yeah, that was a lot of fun. Definitely being chased down. It was quite difficult to hold on to that.
We just can't quite hear you very well there, mate. Sounds like you're about 4 feet away from your mic for a second there.
That was it.
Those final few laps, just talk us how you were feeling there.
It was so intense. I was trying to not push it too much, but my tyres were kind of gone, and yeah, they were just gaining on me like quick pace all the time.
So it wasn't you driving within yourself. I mean, you were genuinely losing pace, were you? We were wondering whether you were just, making sure you weren't making mistakes, driving it home, keeping out of trouble. But they were genuinely a bit quicker.
Yeah, no, I think I overcooked the tyres a bit at the start, and I lost a lot of grip. I just couldn't get the pace. So yeah, at the end, I just took it back a notch, and it kind of helped. I was going to defend quite hard anyway at the end there, so.
Yeah, I was going to say it's the championship lead on the line, to be honest, so I imagine that Steve was going to get one chance at it and you were going to deny him that, but even still, you now move into the championship lead. I believe the gap is 10 points, maybe, so you actually know, because Dennis finished 4th in that one, so you would have got 25 and Dennis would have got 12, so you'll end up 13 points clear from that race, which would then put you 8 points clear now at the top. So over the course of the evening, you've actually opened up your championship lead there. Did you think that was going to happen after the first race?
No, definitely not. I mean, I thought the first race, it was so close, and it was so hard to get past at anyone.
Yeah, it did. It was very much a one-way street for most of it. And I was saying partway through the broadcast as well that a lot of the guys just seemed like they'd realised more and more that points were very much on the line now and that the championship was getting down to the wire, so they were probably playing it a bit safe. Did you feel that that was the case when you were racing against them?
It definitely felt like that, everyone they weren't kind of dive bombing, everyone was kind of staying back, and yeah, that's what I say, it was a really, really good race in that first one. Bumper to bumper really.
Well, hopefully we'll see more of it at Silverstone. How are you feeling about that final round then? 2 races, 8 points difference between you and Dennis. We know how quickly that can turn around.
Yeah, the pressure's definitely on Dennis. To be honest, I think Dennis got more pace than me. I just think I'm quite good at finishing the races quite high, all the time. So, yeah, I think it's going to be really close, to be honest.
Well, I hope it goes well, mate. I'm just actually doing a little bit of calculation here. So, over the course of a race meeting, the most that a team can get is if they finish 1st and 2nd and they get pole in both races. Pole in the first race, 1st and 2nd in both races. 63 points is the most you can get over a race meeting. The might just fit are 44 points clear of Ericsson Hitters, so you boys could quite easily wrap up the championship there as a team. Do you think that it's just going to be focused on the Drivers' Championship, and if that goes with it, it's icing on the cake?
Oh yeah, I think especially no. I think the team one I'm not quite so worried about. I think we'll probably get that one. But yeah, the actual whole thing I'm not quite sure about that. But yeah.
Well, it certainly is close, mate. But very well done again tonight. It was great to see you get that feature race win that's been avoiding you all season. But finally, it is now on your CV. Before we let you go, though, do you want to give a shout out to anybody?
Yeah, I'll give a shout out to you, Chaz and Dave. Thank you for broadcasting it and putting it on. It's really, really good to watch. I always watch you back. And to the S&D boys, I know 40 usually watches, so yeah.
Cracking. Well, thank you very much once again, Dave. Well done, mate.
Well done.
We will speak to you at Silverstone.
Cheers.
Cheers. Right then. So, we've got Carl Jackalette, Fraser Smith, Josh Rayfield. I think Josh Rayfield's probably worth a chat, isn't he, after that performance?
I think he deserves that, yes. After 12 places gained, Josh, in that second race, in the feature race. Mega drive, well done.
Yeah, thank you, mate. Yeah, it was really good. I felt pretty confident towards the end. I was working with Steve and talking to him throughout the race because I knew that he was faster, but there's like no time around here at all between anyone. So.
And it's not the easiest place to overtake either, is it? It's not the widest of circuits, and you haven't got too long a straight to get through. So
yeah,
if you're going to do it, you've got to stick your elbows out.
Yeah, I found the gap round here. You might have like a 0.3 gap on the main straight, but that 0.3 gap is like equivalent to say like 0.8 around Donny National or something like that. It's really, really different, but yeah.
Well, it was great to
Where
see
did all the
Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, were all the places gained at the start? Because we sort of quite soon got used to you being in that leading group, but all the hard work of those places gained was done on the early laps, was it?
Yeah, I was talking because obviously it was just a massive train of cars on the first few laps, and I had a feeling that a lot of people were going to pit on the first lap, and no one did, which shocked me quite a bit. I gave it a few more laps and then boxed, and then got a massive undercut on Matty. I think I was about 3 seconds ahead of him on the end. So, yeah.
Yeah, it worked out well overall then. And I mean, coming into the final race meeting of the season, you've actually moved ahead of Matt now, third in the championship, 2 points ahead of him. Would you, would you go into the final meeting reckoning that you can hold that gap? I mean, we know 2 points can literally be just one position difference, so anything could happen, couldn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Honestly, me and Matty seem to be like very similar pace in these cars, so I think it's going to be really close this final round, because obviously it's going to be elbows out, not like hesitating about maybe sending it a bit more than you would in the the first few rounds. But yeah, definitely going to be close.
Well, we really do look forward to it, Josh, but well done again from both of us. That was a fantastic drive, mate. And do you want to give a shout out to anybody before you go?
Yeah, shout out to all the NLR boys, my mum, my dad, Darren, Gavin, Connor, and just everyone who supports me during doing what I do. So
cracking. Well, good to speak to you, Josh. Very well done, mate. And we'll see you soon. And I have just had a quick message as well. We'll have one more final interview with our race 1 winner, Tom Jacobs, joins us in the booth. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, all right. Had a bit of an issue in race 2. I watched it back and managed to put one wheel over the green line by the looks of it, and it gave me a 40-second stop go, and I followed my teammate into doing the same thing. So, but yeah, race 1 was fantastic.
Yeah, I was going to say that the first race more than made up for that, because the battle that you, Fraser, and Dennis had was absolutely beautiful to watch, and very clean as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, me and Dennis have just been talking back, actually, and me and Fraser have had a chat about it, and Dennis was saying it's nice to see there's still some really respectful drivers within sim racing, and he said, yeah, he just really enjoyed the battle, and he said eventually he managed to, let the place go to me and Fraser as well, but it was really good racing.
And another 1-2 for Nodaphone as well, which you've got a really good thing going on around here at Brands Hatch. I was saying it during qualifying, and it certainly came true in race 1. Is it just something that you really enjoy driving about this track?
Yeah, I've always enjoyed it, to be honest. I remember, I think it was round 11 in the TOCA 2 days, and it used to be a dry track, and then it used to go to a really heavy thunderstorm, and as you were coming out of turn 1 down the hill, the car would always spin, and I managed to do 30 laps of that on the keyboard back in those days. I'm about 6, so yeah, I've always enjoyed Brands Hatch in a tin top car.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Well, any questions from you, David?
I was just going to say, Tom, the only downside, of course, is that you've had more wins than anybody, but the trouble is that the win came in the race where you get fewer points, so it was, in a sense, the wrong one to win, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really. I think, to be fair, the undercut was very strong in race 2, so if we hadn't have got that penalty, Fraser and I, then we would have been quite far up with Steve Burke and Josh Rayfield and Dave Waldock as well, so yeah, I think it just didn't really pay off for us in the end. We both got a penalty, and it is what it is at the end of the day, and we're both looking forward to the last round of the season. 2
more races, you can still win those, can't you?
Yeah, we can have a good go, I think. We'll take the fight to the very end.
Beautiful.
Excellent, that's all we like.
Love it. Well, just before we let you go, though, Tom, obviously ahead of the final round of the season in 2 weeks' time, do you want to give a shout-out?
Yeah, I'll give a shout-out to my dad, Big Ash, as he's known. He talks to me all the way through this and gives me helpful tips. He's on how to race nice and quick, bless him. So yeah, big shout out to him, my teammate Fraser for just pep talks and talking things through, and then just to everyone else tonight just for really clean racing, and of course you two guys as well for making our broadcast utterly fantastic.
Thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you very much.
Well, we shall see you at Silverstone then, mate, for the season finale in 2 weeks' time.
Brilliant, thanks very much, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers, Tom.
Well, another very exciting race meeting in the books then, David. What do you make of that one overall?
It's the perfect race meeting to tee up a championship, because actually what people were doing was racing for points. Quite often when you get to this stage in a real world championship, people are almost trying to keep out of trouble. And if you think back to modern day touring car racing, sometimes Silverstone, which has been the penultimate event, has not been quite as frantic, because people are trying to gain points rather than gain places. They're trying to think about banking points and not get themselves into strife, whereas here people were racing hard and were going for it, and that has given us, both in the Mediocre Cup and outright, 2 championships that are going to go down to the wire with lots of drivers all in with a chance of gaining places. So yeah, it's been a good evening of racing in isolation, and it's also helped hugely set up the championship for a good showdown.
It really has. And don't forget, everybody, if you join us same time in 2 weeks, 7:45 p.m. BST, David and I will be calling the shots on the final 2 rounds of the first season of the British Touring Car Championship. Dave Waldock goes into it 8 points clear of Dennis Melcher. Matt Draycott only having a small advantage now over Steve Burke of 16 points. So those guys will surely make a lot of... 14 points. I do apologise. My maths is terrible. They're going to just make a really, really good show of it. But thank you, everybody that has watched this season, and we will see you in 2 weeks' time. And thank you, of course, to David as well for jumping in on this. It's been great to commentate with you, and one more round to finally finish it all off. And, of course, from everyone that will be watching as well, I'm sure, I hope you enjoy the British Touring Car Championship at the weekend to the best of your ability with the current circumstances.
I'm sure it will be a good day's racing, if nothing else. We've got 3 good races to look forward to, and it'll be good to have real world racing back underway. So yes, if you're not doing anything on Sunday, then do tune in. I hear the coverage is very good.
It is, yes, it certainly is. And there's a guy that likes pies and cakes as well on the comms, I believe, with you joining in the box, I think, for that one. Is he?
Mr. Harvey will be there. We're going to have our own little private areas, you see, 2 metres apart with screens between us. I saw Paul O'Neill today and complimented on wearing his mask. Turns out he wasn't, but Paul will be busy as well. And Richard Neal will be doing Sterling stuff on all the support races as ever. So, if you're able on Sunday, join us on ITV4. It's live and it's free.
Smashing. Well, thank you once again, everybody. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in 2 weeks' time for the finale at Silverstone.